Dallas City Council Member Bazaldua from District 7. Thank you so much, and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So on Friday, the Dallas Mavericks CEO, Rick Welts, made a comment at a community meeting, and he said that the city manager, Kim Tolbert, had told him back in a year earlier. They had a conversation about the future of Dallas City Hall. And let me quote here. This is what he said. He said, quote, "Over a year ago, City Manager Tolbert came to us and said, look, I got to move out of City Hall. I can't afford to operate what we do in that building going forward for the taxpayers." And he said, I said, okay, that doesn't have anything to do with us, but at some point in time, you'll tell us what's available, and then we can sit down and have a conversation about that. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think that was the elephant that's been in the room in many of our conversations about City Hall. I think the biggest question in several people's minds is what spurred this conversation? Why did we go from being advised from the city manager's office just months prior at a much lower number of deferred maintenance needs in our city hall to all of a sudden this inflated assessment that was mischaracterizing to the public that we are going to require $1 billion to be put into this building in order to continue to operate. The reality is we've lacked transparency through this process. Our city manager took it upon herself to bring City Hall's real estate on the market by having that conversation. And that conversation was had prior to any council action. And it's very clear on how our city government works. The city manager works on the behalf and the will of the Dallas City Council. I know for a fact that no one on our council took any action that gave the city manager that authority. And to insert herself in a process that should have been done with much more transparency is very concerning to me.
And so you said a lot there, so let's break it down. First, as it relates to the city manager's comments, as the city manager, does she not have the authority to just have a conversation with the Mavericks to keep them here in Dallas?
Listen, the city manager can have all the conversations she wants, but when she is dealing with city business in her official capacity, it should be done so at the will of the council. And we did not give any clear direction to have a conversation with any organization. Conversations about whether or not we are able to keep the Mavericks franchise here in the city of Dallas is absolutely an important one. But I still am confused on why that would be conflated with a conversation of what the future of City Hall, of the City Hall site is. So the city manager is able to have conversations with business community. She's of course able to have desires and hopes for what the city can bring, but there are processes in place for her to get that approval from our elected body, and that just did not occur. You look at your interview, Jack, with our mayor just last week. It completely contradicted what Rick Welts spoke about. This absolutely was started before any of the elected body was in a conversation. The mayor referenced a memo that he put out specific to committee charges. That happened months after conversations were being had with the executives of both the Sands Corporation and the Mavericks Corporation. So we have to start being honest if we're going to end up with a good outcome, quite frankly. And I feel that we have had an extremely dishonest conversation with the public to this point.
And as far as so just to make sure I understand exactly what you're saying, the fact that she told the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, hey, City Hall seems to be, she seemingly said City Hall is available.
She seemingly said that City Hall was available, and that it was way out of her jurisdiction, if you will. I think that she stepped out of her lane as the role of city manager that works at the will of the council. And instead, she has expressed the desire and the will of the city manager. And so I think that it happened backwards. Now, had the city manager had the city council evaluated data and numbers to support that it was going to be unobtainable and unsustainable for us to stay in this building, and we directed the city manager to go engage the market and to figure out what that potential could look like, similar to what actions have already taken place, that would have been a different story. But it was not only premature for those conversations to be had before the council was engaged, it was also a slap in the face to our taxpayers and the democratic process of our local government.
And so, the other part of the interview with the mayor, one of the mayor's big points is that he trusts the cost estimates. He said they aligned with what city staff said, and he said these were the best firms in the world to do this kind of study. What do you say?
I'm not fully shocked by the mayor's outlook because he doesn't show up to meetings. And we had several meetings at the committee level where we actually extensively questioned the numbers and the findings that were brought forth. And so, you can engage from an arm's distance, and that's about that's about the level of comprehension of what it is that we're talking about, I would expect. And right now, there are several of us on council who have cared enough to dig deep, who have been a part of all of the conversations, have been in the room every time we've been made the opportunity. And I believe that a lot of those members have a different outlook. To say that these numbers that have been given to us that varied so drastically from the last time we've been briefed by city staff, and to not question their validity, to not ask for a third party review, to not expect to have more information before giving a vote of confidence on a $1 billion decision, to me is just lazy governing. It's poor leadership, and our taxpayers of the city deserve better.
And so, what you want now, another outside firm to come in and do an assessment.
I would love to see some comparable data from someone else in the system as it was brought up during the process. Not one of the companies who were engaged and asked to give us these numbers and the assessment of City Hall, not one of them did not stand to benefit financially from the decision being swayed to leaving City Hall. And that to me is problematic. We need some objectivity here. We don't need a predetermined outcome. And the voters who sent me here did not send me here as a rubber stamp.
And so, let me ask you this. Since all this came out, since our interview with the mayor, since the CEO from the Mavericks made that statement on Friday morning, have you had a chance to have a conversation with the city manager about this? And does the city manager owe the public an explanation?
I saw the city manager put a statement out. She also sent it to the entire council. I believe she does owe an explanation to the timeline and the discrepancies of what has been made public. And I believe we will give her an opportunity to do that at the council level. I think that it is very concerning to know that conversations are being had and decisions are being shaped before bringing the policymakers to the table. And that's what it seems we have here right now.
The process is backwards, in your opinion.
Process is absolutely backwards right now. We have been given an outcome to put a stamp, a vote of stamp, a stamped vote on. But what we have not been given is the proper data and adequate information for us to make that decision.
And but has there been anything in writing by you and or other council members telling, do you think you need to vote on this again? In other words, because on March 4th, at least as I understand it, you told the city manager to go forward and we need more data, we need more information. Are you saying the council needs to come back and re-vote on this and tell her you want, as a council, another look at other companies to come in and do this before we look at other cost variables?
Look, I think that we have our process in place for how things make the agenda and get voted on, but at the same time, I believe that there are several of us who take our role as a leader of this city very serious. And there are things we can do within our own power that we are exploring now, to give us the necessary information and to continue having this discussion in a more transparent manner. And I'm happy to keep you posted as that continues, Jack, but without divulging too much. We are working towards bringing in more balanced data, more information to consider, and hopefully a more transparent conversation for my colleagues to take up.
And so are you talking about a certain number of council members initiating this and moving that forward?
Yes, I would say that there are a number of things that are being worked on, in addition to the procedures of how we can continue to vote on this and give formal direction. There's also things we could be doing to accrue data that is needed, that is unbiased and a third party to review.
And let me ask you another question, as far as the numbers are concerned. The mayor said, when I asked him about what former Mayor Laura Miller said, which was she didn't trust this process. She said there was a lack of transparency, a lot of self-interest. The mayor did say to me that he felt that there were some council members who are opposed to selling off City Hall. They want to keep City Hall, and it doesn't matter what studies suggest as far as the costs are concerned, that unless the studies say what the council members want it to say, they're not going to budge. What do you say to that?
I mean, I say, your entire interview with the mayor brings up something that I'm constantly reminded of in my position, and that's if you're explaining, you're losing. And it sounded like it was a big session for the mayor to explain himself because, quite frankly, they are losing the transparent conversation with the public. And so the mayor's reaction to anyone having a predetermined outcome of what this situation is, while supporting a flawed and untransparent process with a clear predetermined outcome, just speaks to the how genuine the messaging is from some of the people who are proponents of getting rid of City Hall. I think the mayor really exacerbated the fact that this has been an untransparent conversation, and instead of scrutinizing colleagues for doing their job with the direct oversight that we have of our city manager, the mayor wants to play politics and make this be a divisive conversation. It doesn't have to be, but that's the nature of his leadership style.
And do you think that this 9-6 vote on March 4th would have been different had this information come out before that? As
I
far as
hope,
the
I hope
information,
that I would hope that the vote that we took would have been different had we known this. Because one of the things that I felt on Friday when I heard the comments that were made by Rick Welts was how stupid some of my colleagues probably have to be feeling right now. They've been made to believe that this was a transparent process. They've been made to believe that there is adequate information for us to truly consider leaving City Hall based on data, not speaking about the fact that our city manager took it upon herself to approach people and start a process with the notion that she wants to vacate City Hall. If that isn't context that is needed to make an informed decision, I don't know what is. But if you want to stand behind data that was brought in by biased sources, all who stand to benefit from the sale of City Hall, and then dig your heels in and say that it was done objectively when it's clear now that our city manager, on the other hand, has started this conversation and this process with the intent to give us data to support getting rid of City Hall, then what are we doing here as an elected body? What does the public expect from their elected officials? It is our job to provide direct oversight to increase transparency and accountability in our local government. And that's exactly what we're doing when we're pushing back on this flawed process. I am not doing this because I have nostalgia for a building. I am not opposed leaving City Hall because it is actually needed. I'm opposed because it's not needed, because we are lying to the public for what has brought us here. And if this is truly about the Dallas Mavericks, then this conversation should have been brought up about the Dallas Mavericks. We should have been having a conversation transparently about the need for a sports franchise, and there should have been a specific ask if they were interested in our land. But instead, we've inflated numbers. We've acted as if this structurally sound building is crumbling in front of our faces. And meanwhile, we are catering to a master plan of neighboring billionaires in downtown Dallas that ultimately just want to use our site to make more money. And the fact that we can't invest in our downtown Dallas and keep the Mavericks and maintain city assets for civic purpose is absurd. I believe that all of our taxpayers should have an expectation for us to walk and chew gum at the same time.
And if there are going to be another set of, if there's another third party group that goes out, has nothing to do with this process after that, they come back, they say, and their findings mirror what has already been put out, would you keep an open mind at that point?
I've always had an open mind, but it's hard to maintain an open mind when you have such closed-minded information to consider with such a large decision. All I've asked for at the very beginning has been for a more transparent process. I've asked for an objective process so that we can do our due diligence, so that I can come to the public with a straight face and get honest feedback from them. Right now, I do not feel confident in the information that's been given to us to go to my constituents and say, this is the decision that we have to weigh out, because we're not being given honest information. The $329 million that you even cited in the interview with your mayor is one that includes changing everything in City Hall. This isn't just maintaining the building up to standard. And so we need to see an actual breakdown of what this is going to look like, not a wish list, not conflated to the modernization and the wants of a grade A workplace. This has a civic purpose. And one thing that was brought up in your interview with the mayor, it was discussed about really weighing out the opportunity, I believe the mayor framed it as. Well, yeah, there's probably opportunity everywhere. I could probably tell you some of the rec centers in our city that have a more valuable land use, but you can't always put apples to apples on the value of what a city asset provides in its civic role. It's not going to be comparable to the amount that can be brought forth on a tax base from another business operating here. So it's not a genuine conversation that we're having with the public. To conflate the two is it's not ignorance, it's intentional disingenuousness. And we're trying to frame a conversation to fit the narrative of what certain people want instead of just having an honest conversation. And all I'm asking for is for us to have an honest conversation.
We will leave it there. Dallas Council Member Adam Bazaldua from District 7. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack. Have
We
a good day.
appreciate it.